The drinking water systems that serve more than 3.2 million New Yorkers rely on the water from rivers, lakes, and streams that, before it's treated, contains unsafe levels of so-called forever chemicals, known more as PFAS. High levels of exposure to these chemicals have been linked to health problems such as cancer, but only some of the hundreds of affected drinking water systems across New York are actually required to treat their water, leaving an untold number of New Yorkers subjected, sometimes unknowingly, to elevated PFAS levels in their tap water.
When the EPA came in and announced that we could no longer drink or use our water due to PFAS contamination, shortly thereafter, we had Department of Health did some blood testing on our residents, and the results came back a few months later, and me and my family had some of the highest levels of PFOA in our community.
Laureen Hackett, a Hoosick Falls resident, has fought numerous health complications due to high PFAS and PFOA levels in her body.
Knowing some of the illnesses that I have and that my family has suffered, now knowing they're very likely linked to drinking poisoned water for so long, the effect is, as you would expect, it's frightening, it's angering, because you don't know what's going to happen, particularly in the future for my grandchildren. So it's an ongoing, always in the back of your mind, metal sliver in your brain about long-term health for you and your family.
What we know now from testing is PFAS compounds could be considered ubiquitous in the environment, found almost everywhere, including surface water supplies and, in some cases, groundwater aquifers as well.
Ken Noggle, a production engineer for the Monroe County Water Authority, says his utility has installed technologies to limit PFAS chemicals, but many smaller systems can't afford to do much about the problem until contamination levels reach a critical mass.
The EPA's action this past March to introduce a national primary drinking water regulation went above and beyond what New York State currently has in place for those two PFAS compounds. The EPA's action will, if final, establish a maximum contaminant level at a concentration of 4 parts per trillion versus New York State's MCL at 10 parts per trillion.
Nearly 135 water systems in New York violated the state's maximum contamination levels for PFAS chemicals in 2021. And while that represents only a small percentage of all New York water systems, in all those cases, testing results breached the state's maximum level of 10 parts per trillion, which requires the water systems to notify residents and their local health departments. The water systems are then tasked with fixing the problem through testing or removing contaminated sources.
Removing PFAS chemicals from drinking water is not cheap. And this is one of the reasons that government agencies, certainly New York State government, but also EPA, has been reluctant to establish more stringent drinking water standards.
David Carpenter, a public health physician and professor at the University of Albany, says that the cost of implementing rigorous treatment methods makes widespread adoption challenging.
It's going to be very expensive for the local drinking water treatment facilities. And it's always an issue with regulatory agencies to balance cost versus benefit. As is often the case, the industry and the costs often overshadow the issue of health benefits.
The EPA proposal estimates these systems could cost up to $1.2 billion to implement nationwide. New York State is currently reviewing a proposal to monitor a set maximum contamination level for about 24 other lesser-known PFAS chemicals. But advocates like Hackett are pushing for a total ban on PFAS in New York in all non-essential uses.
2 weeks ago, they found that your contact lenses are loaded with it. Then they find out it's in toilet paper. We know it's in menstrual products. We know it's in peanut butter and spaghetti sauce. And without stopping this stuff at the source, there's absolutely no way possible to avoid it.
While the New York State Department of Health stresses that residents can continue to drink their water unless told otherwise by their public water system, local, or state health departments, Hackett says staying informed can be the key to staying healthy.
The first thing anybody has to do is educate themselves. No one's going to do it for you. Don't look to your government to do it for you. Don't look to your state to do it for you or your water utility. You have to learn on your time.